All right, let's jump into a concept that is, no joke, the bread and butter of AL programming, assignments. We're going to talk all about how you give your variables their values and, just as importantly, how Business Central deals with all the different kinds of data you throw at it.
So, here's what we've got on tap. We'll start with why assignments are so darn important. Then we'll get into the specifics of AL's special operator for this. You'll see what I mean. We'll talk about strong typing, basically the strict rules of the road. After that, we'll see when AL bends those rules for us with automatic conversions. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with some best practices to avoid common pitfalls.
Okay, let's dive right in. Think about it. Everything you do in code, whether you're figuring out an invoice total or just updating a simple customer address, it all comes down to one thing: moving data around. And the main tool you have for that job, that's the assignment statement.
So, here's a quick question for you. What do you think is the single most common statement you're going to write in AL? Seriously, the one line you'll type more than anything else. Yep, you guessed it. It's the assignment statement. This thing is the absolute workhorse of all your code.
So what is it really? Well, at its heart, it's super simple. An assignment statement is just the act of taking some data, any data, and putting it into a variable. Think of a variable as an empty box. The assignment is you putting something inside that box. It's how we save results, move information. It's literally what makes our code do stuff. Without assignments, our variables are just, well, empty boxes with no purpose.
And the cool thing is you can put all sorts of things in these boxes. You can assign a straight-up value, like the number 100, or you can assign the result of a calculation, like price times quantity. You can even take the value from one variable and copy it into another. It's this flexibility that really gives assignments their power.
All right, so we get why assignments are important. Now let's look at the actual syntax, the specific tool Al gives us to make it happen.
There it is, a colon followed by an equals sign. Now, if you've coded in other languages, you might be used to just a single equals sign. Don't let this throw you off. In AL, colon equals does that exact same job. It assigns a value.
And here's a fantastic little tip to help you read your AL code more naturally. Whenever you see CI colon, just say the word becomes in your head. So if you see a line like my variable becomes 10, you'd read it as my variable becomes 10. It sounds simple, but it really helps clarify what's happening.
Okay, this next part is super important. It's the order of operations. AL has a very strict rule. It always figures out everything on the right-hand side of the C equals first. It does all the math, all the calculations, until it has one single final answer. Only then does it take that answer and put it into the variable on the left.
And here's a perfect example of that. On the left, it's simple. Item count becomes 25. Easy enough. But look at the right. Total cost becomes the result of unit price times item count. So AL does that multiplication first, gets a number, and then that final number gets assigned to total cost.
Okay, this leads us to a really key idea in AI, something that makes it incredibly robust and reliable. It's all about a strict set of rules for your data. And trust me, you'll come to see these rules as a very good thing.
So here's the big rule. AL is what we call a strongly typed language. That sounds technical, but all it really means is this. If you have a box, a variable, that's labeled for numbers only, you can only put numbers in it. If you have a box labeled for text only, you can only put text in it. The type of data has to match the type of the variable. Simple as that. And here we see that rule in action. On the left, putting the number 123 into an integer variable, totally fine, that works. But on the right, trying to stuff the text ABC into that same integer variable, nope, not going to happen. AL will flag that as an error before you can even run the code. It's the classic square peg in a round hole problem.
So you might be wondering, why is AL so picky about this? Well, it's all about protecting you, the developer, and protecting the integrity of the business data. This rule prevents crazy bugs from happening. Imagine accidentally saving a customer's name into a field that's supposed to hold their bank balance. Strong typing stops that kind of chaos before it starts, which makes your code way more reliable and predictable.
Now, like with any good set of rules, there are a few exceptions. While AL is strict, it's also smart. In some very specific cases, it can actually convert a data type for you, automatically, behind the scenes.
But hold on, this isn't a free-for-all. You can't just convert anything to anything. This automatic conversion only works within two specific families of data types: strings, like text and code, and numerics, like integers and decimals. They have to be compatible.
Let's look at strings first. This is a common one. Say you have a text variable and you assign its value to a code variable. AL does a couple of really helpful things for you. It automatically makes everything uppercase and it trims off any leading or trailing spaces. Why is this useful? Well, think about things like customer numbers or postal codes. You want them to be stored in a consistent, clean format every single time. This does it for you.
Now, for numbers, the automatic conversions are all about safety. For example, you can assign a value from a big integer to a regular integer, but only if that number is actually small enough to fit without losing data. Similarly, you can assign a decimal to an integer, but only if it's a whole number with no fractional part. AL checks this for you to prevent you from accidentally losing precision or corrupting your financial data.
Okay, so we've covered the mechanics and the rules. Let's wrap up by talking about some best practices. How to put this all together and write clean, reliable code without tripping over common pitfalls.
Really, it all boils down to this. Be intentional. Just because AL can do an automatic conversion for you doesn't mean you should let it without thinking. Always ask yourself, what's the worst case scenario for this data? Could this number get too big? Could this decimal have fractions? The absolute best practice is to choose the correct data type right from the very beginning. Your code will be clearer, safer, and a whole lot easier to read for you and anyone else who comes after you.
All right, a quick final recap. Remember, the colon operator is becomes. Always remember that AL solves everything on the right side before assigning to the left. We learned that AL is strongly typed, and that's a good thing. It keeps our code reliable. And we saw that, yes, automatic conversions are there to help, but they have their own specific rules for strings and numbers.
So you've now mastered the most fundamental action in programming, giving a variable its value. But what's next? Well, the real magic happens when you start building more complex and powerful expressions on the right-hand side of that becomes operator. And that's exactly where we're heading, so you can start to unlock the real power of your business central logic.